Well, Shabbat Shalom. I just want to welcome everyone to the Sabbath Day conference call. And this is Barbara, and I'm serving as your host today, and Brother Pete is serving as your co-host. We just want to welcome everyone that's here by the phone, internet, or maybe you're listening to the YouTube channel. Well, today our topic is holy days versus holidays. Well, which one is true and which one is counterfeit? We have Jehovah's holidays or holy days that are the 7 feasts of Yah, and also a counterfeit that many of you know because of the world we're living in today. And the holidays of the world. Let's see, we have Christmas, New Year's Day, Valentine's Day, Easter, Lent, Halloween, and Sunday Sabbath. And then we have the 7 holy days of Jehovah, and you can find all these in Leviticus 23, 1 through 44. We have Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Feast of Weeks, Pentecost, trumpets, Day of Atonement, tabernacles, and Sabbath. So Jehovah's feasts are forever and for all, and that is found in Jeremiah 10, 1 to 2. He says, "Hear the word that Jehovah speaks to you, O house of Israel. Thus says Jehovah, learn not the way of the nations, nor be dismayed at the signs of the heavens, because the nations are dismayed at them." And we know that Jehovah's feasts are perpetually binding. Deuteronomy 12, 29 to 32. Jehovah says, Jehovah your Elohim will cut off before you the nations who are about to invade and dispossess. But when you have driven them out and settled in their land, and after they have been destroyed before you, be careful not to be ensnared by inquiring about their gods, saying, how do these nations serve their gods? We will do the same. You must not worship Jehovah your Elohim in their way, because in worshiping their gods, they do all kinds of detestable things that Jehovah hates. They even burn their sons and daughters in the fire as sacrifices to their gods. See that you do all I command you. Do not add to it or take away from it.
7 days, or feast of Yahweh from Leviticus 23, 1 through 44, as we've said. Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Feast of Weeks, trumpets, Day of Atonement, tabernacles, and Sabbath. Torah-observant believers, like all other believers out there in the world, are always seeking to walk in the ways of Yahweh. We study the Bible and seek the wisdom of the Holy Spirit, that is the Ruach HaKodesh, as we make the best decisions we can for our families. When it comes to special days to celebrate and observe, Torah-observant believers agree that there are clearly days set aside in Scripture that Yahweh commands us to observe. These days are easily outlined in the book of Leviticus chapter 23. They are mentioned all throughout Scripture, and even in the New Testament we see Yeshua and his disciple keeping these feast days.
So the feasts of Yah are forever. And when Jehovah told Moses about his appointed times, they were permanent statutes throughout the generations. He gave those eternal statutes to the Israelites, the people, that if we claim to be believers in Yeshua and have been grafted into his adopted family, as it says in Romans 11 and Romans 8. Think about that. If you adopt a child, do you follow the child's tradition? Or does he or she become part of your family and take on the teachings and traditions of your family? If we are Jehovah's children, we are to take on his ways, his traditions. And the feasts of Jehovah are just that, his appointed times. He did not say they were for the Jews, the Christians, etc. They were his feasts, his appointed times. Leviticus 23, 1 to 2. And we did a YouTube about this. Maybe you're from a church that doesn't believe in keeping the feast, so we did this, and the title is What Was Nailed to the Cross? And we found out it was our certificate of death. It was not the feast days.
Passover. The first three feasts of Yahweh have been fulfilled through the death, burial, and resurrection of Messiah, Yeshua. Let's start with Passover, as it's the first feast day of Yahweh's calendar. Passover not only represents the Israelites' rescue from Egypt, it is also the day of Yeshua's sacrificial death. 1 Corinthians 5:7-9 tells us, "Clean out the old yeast, that you may be a new batch. You are indeed unleavened. For Messiah, our Passover, has been sacrificed. Therefore, let us observe the feast, not with the old yeast, or with the yeast of malice and evil, but with unleavened bread of sincerity and truth." End quote. He is our Passover. This feast has certainly been fulfilled through Messiah, Yeshua, and is observed on the 14th day of Nisan on the Hebrew calendar. As an aside note, did you know that Christians commemorated the death and resurrection of Messiah on Passover until the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD? In its quest to rid Christianity of anything, quote, Jewish, changed the date to coincide with the pagan carnival Easter, which celebrated the goddess of fertility, Ishtar, which is why it's called Easter.
And there is a biblical calendar here on this page showing Passover and the first month as the 14th day. Unleavened bread. Well, the next feast, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, has also been fulfilled by Yeshua at his burial in the tomb on Nisan 15. That's the 15th day of the first month. And Yeshua is our bread of heaven, John 6:51. Quote, "I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. The bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh."
Feast of First Fruits. Next is the Feast of First Fruits. This is fulfilled by Yeshua at his resurrection, 1 Corinthians 5:20-23. Quote, "But now Messiah has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. For since death came through a man, the resurrection of the dead also comes through a man. For as in Adam all die, so also in Messiah all will be made alive, but each in his own order. Messiah the first fruits, afterwards at his coming those who belong to Messiah."
Okay, well, I'm sure you've all heard of Easter, sunrise services, Easter eggs, and bunnies.
Question: Is Easter a feast ordained by Yahweh? Answer: no, it isn't. Easter has pagan roots and has been adopted by Christianity as celebration of the resurrection of Yeshua. Most historians, including biblical scholars, agree that Easter was originally a pagan festival. According to the New Unger's Bible Dictionary, quote, "The word Easter is of pagan origin. Istra, the goddess of spring, in whose honor sacrifices were offered about Passover time each year. By the 8th century, Anglo-Saxons had adopted the name to designate the celebration of Christ's resurrection," end quote. However, even among those who maintain that Easter has pagan roots, there is such disagreement over the pagan tradition the festival emerged from. The link is below for those who
like to picture here. Yeah, thank you, Brother Pete. Yep, all these links will be left below. And in this picture over here on the right, it shows an Egyptian Easter or Ishtar. So we know this goes all the way back to Babylon and the Tower of Babel and Semiramis. We've done quite a few studies about that.
You may ask, is Easter Christian? Isn't it biblically based, depicting the resurrection of Yeshua, Messiah? Again, we find the same result. If you research Easter customs, you'll find that many of them are based on ancient fertility symbols. Have you ever stopped to question why bunnies and colorful eggs are so closely linked to the commemoration of the death and resurrection of the Savior of mankind? Perhaps it's time we did just that, ask questions. What we see is a combination of biblical themes with the pagan traditions of the ages past. This is called syncretism. Notice the definition of syncretize. Quote, to attempt to unite and harmonize, especially without critical examination or logical unity. That from Merriam-Webster Collegiate Dictionary. Many people will acknowledge that this practice of syncretism played a part in the expansion of Christianity through making it more appealing to pagans. Some think, so what if some of our customs and traditions surrounding cherished holidays have pagan, non-Christian origins? Why does it really matter if one's intention is to worship God through these various customs? Many would claim that these quaint customs only enhance the celebration and make it fun for the family. You can follow the link below for more.
So holy days versus holidays. What does the Bible say? Christianity is based on the Bible. What does the Bible say about holidays and customs? Jehovah warned his people not to seek to learn how other nations worship their pagan gods. Deuteronomy 12:31. You shall not worship Jehovah your Elohim in that way. For every abomination to Jehovah which he hates, they have done to their gods. Okay, so let's compare holy days and calendars. Here on the left is the Creator's calendar, and then we have the Gregorian calendar, which is named after the Roman Pope Gregory. And this is just a quick little review for those of you that maybe haven't studied the calendar. In 46 BC, there was a Roman Julian calendar, and it had 8 days a week, and that's the calendar that was at the time of Yeshua. Yeshua did not go by that calendar, but that was the calendar of Rome. And then 1582, Gregorian, Pope Gregory, started the Gregorian calendar. So the Gregorian calendar, maybe you don't know, is only 439 years old. What about the Father's calendar? When did it start? Well, how about in the beginning? Genesis 1:14. And Yah said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And you will see the Father's calendar here in the heavens. The new moon day begins the month with no light on it yet, and then it waxes to become the first quarter, which is the 8th day of the month, and fully, completely white and full on the 15th, and then the last quarter, the 22nd. So there's always been a calendar in the heavens for everyone to follow. Okay, so we're going to look at some of the holy days and then also the world's holidays on their calendars. So Lamb's Day is the 10th day of the first month. And you can see that here, over here on this calendar, we have Lamb's Day is the 10th day when they were told to go purchase a lamb, acquire a lamb, and then Passover is the 14th, which is preparation day. First day of unleavened bread was Sabbath and is Sabbath, and then first fruits is 16th. We're going to go through all of these. But okay, the contrast is Palm Sunday, and that is the Sunday the week before Easter, or Ishtar. And then we have Passover, the 14th day of the month on the Father's calendar. And then we have Good Friday, which is named after Frigg and Frigga. We've done that before. These heathen goddesses is what Friday is named for. And that is your beginning of your Easter weekend.
Barb, I might make a comment
go
if
ahead,
you'll back
brother.
up one slide.
Sure, I'd be glad to.
For those that haven't caught this yet, the biblical calendar on the left is the same for every month. It is not like this is entirely different representation than the Gregorian calendar on the right. And in the rightmost column, that is the phases of the moon. The new moon is the first, and the first quarter or half moon is on the 8th. The 15th is always the full moon. So this calendar will always be the same for every month, different than the Gregorian, which just happens to throw days in as their pattern assigns them. And the moon's phases are totally separate on the Gregorian calendar.
Okay, and maybe I can go back there as the picture, what you're discussing. Go ahead, Brother Peyton.
Yes, so if we look at the calendar, it is representing what we see on the right. The new moon, which shows on the 30th day, which is also at the beginning of the month, is where the moon is not visible. It is coinciding with the sun, and it is invisible. And then as the moon waxes through that first week, on the 8th day, the end of the week, which would be a Sabbath, we find a half moon. We'd go out at night, we would see a clear half moon. And then it would wax greater until the 15th, which is where you would have full moon. That's the Sabbath of the full moon. And then it would wane from there down to the 22nd of the lunar month, which is where it would be a half moon, a half representation again. You would only see that after midnight, by the way. You could only see that in the morning hours or pre-morning hours. And then on the 29th, we return to the new moon or non-seen moon. That'd be the 29th and the 30th until we start a new month. There's kind of a leap period there called the new moon. The new moon varies in length. That's the difference in the lunar Sabbath system than the Gregorian system. And then you start the new month again.
And so this calendar is the same every month. The Sabbaths are always the 15th, and preparation day is always the 14th. We'll go back here. So Sabbath is the 15th day of the first month, and that's the day when unleavened bread feast begins. But, you know, on the Gregorian calendar, there is a Saturday, and it's the 7th day on the Gregorian calendar, and it's named for Saturn, the Roman god of the harvest. Okay, then on the 16th, on the Father's calendar, we have the first fruits, and this is always the day after the Sabbath on the Father's calendar is the first day of this week. But in the Passover month, we have, like I said, Passover, unleavened bread, then the beginning, first fruits, and then we have our 6 working days, and then a Sabbath. So on the counterfeit calendar of the counterfeit holidays, we have Easter Sunday, and it's a sunrise service. Everything is named after the sun and after Ishtar. All pagan origins. So that was the spring holy days and unholy days, I'll say. And now we're going to the fall holy days and the fall feast.
Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, and Feast of Tabernacles. The last three feasts of Yahweh, the Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles, have yet to be fulfilled by Yeshua. They represent future events in Yeshua's master plan. They point to his return, his judgment, and his millennial reign, and final triumph over evil. The last feast The Feast of Tabernacles, also known as the Feast of Booths or Feast of Ingathering, represents the fulfillment of Yahweh's plan. The Messiah will return to tabernacle with his people. Zechariah sees the ultimate fulfillment of this feast. Zechariah 14:16 says, as we quote, "Then all the survivors from the nations that came against Jerusalem will go up year after year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to celebrate the festival of booths." That's tabernacles. See also Revelation 7:9, 17, 9 through 17, Revelation 21, verse 1, and Revelation 22 and verse 5.
Okay, so we have the same calendar again, only this is the 7th month, and we have the fall holy days. And you'll see Tabernacle starts on the Sabbath, the 15th. And then there's a whole 6 days following of that week for the Feast of Tabernacles. And okay, so here it is, a larger calendar. Brother Pete, would you want to explain a little bit about the week of Tabernacles?
Well, on this one here, we're looking at the Day of Atonement on the 10th, and then on the full moon we have Tabernacles, or the beginning of Tabernacles, which runs 1 week, and it closes at the end of that week. And then, of course, following Tabernacles, we have, anyway, I'll drop it there.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, well, everybody knows the fall holiday of the world is definitely pagan, and that is Halloween on October 31. Those are the pagan fall feasts. And you've all heard of the winter holidays of the world. Of course, Christmas is named after, it was originally Saturnalia, named after Saturn. We've heard that name before in the day Saturday, haven't we? So the winter holidays of the world, we'll go into that for a little bit. Everybody, I think, knows most of this, that Christmas, December 25th, has pagan origins, and it was around way before Yeshua was ever here. Here's a little history.
The history of Christmas. Notice that these recognized historical authorities show Christmas was not observed by Christians for the first 200 or 300 years after the life, ministry, and death of Yeshua. Clearly, we see there is no biblical justification for the observance of Christmas. So where did Christmas come from? William Walsh provides some of the historical origins of Christmas in his book, The Story of Santa Claus. Quote, "We remember that the Christmas festival is a gradual evolution from the times that long antedated the Christian period. It was overlaid upon heathen festivals, and many of its observances are only adaptations of pagan ceremonies." Reporter Jeffrey Scheller noted, quote, "So tarnished, in fact, was its reputation that colonial America that celebrated Christmas was banned in Puritan New England, where the noted minister Cotton Mather described Yuletime merrymaking as, quote, an affront upon the grace of God." And that from The Search of Christmas. Imagine that. Early New England settlers actually banned the celebration of Christmas. The Puritans fined anyone who celebrated Christmas. Spending just a brief amount of time in research, one can quickly see that practically every tradition associated with Christmas originated in pre-Christian pagan ritual practices. Deuteronomy 12:3-4. "And you shall destroy their altars and break their sacrificial pillars and burn their wooden images with fire. You shall cut down the carved images of their gods and destroy their names from that place. You shall not worship Yahweh your God with such things."
In Jeremiah 10, if you want to study a bit more about the Christmas trees, Jeremiah 10, 3 through 5 tells all about it. So, okay, how about another winter holiday or unholy day? Really, the first day of the year is in the spring. New Moon Day is the first month in the spring, and that's the month of Passover. But the pagan or the Gregorian calendar or the world, let's put it that way, has New Year's Day right smack in the winter, January 1, and that's named after the god Janus that looks forward and backward, the two-faced god, looking forward and backward. So that is all pagan ritual. It is not the first day of the year on the Father's calendar.
At the time of the Exodus from Egypt, Exodus 12, 1 through 2, and Yahweh spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. However, the Julian calendar takes effect for the first time on New Year's Day. In 45 BC, the New Year's Day is celebrated on January 1st for the first time in history as the Julian calendar takes effect. You can find that at history.com, This Day in History, New Year's Day.
Counterfeit holidays. So why can't we find specific instructions about the careful observance of Christmas and Easter in the pages of the Bible? Well, one would think such important celebrations would be a major part of the teaching of the New Testament church. But the Bible does not teach their observance. The Bible teaches 7 meaningful holy days, but not the major holidays celebrated today. The reality is that the Bible forbids the observance of holidays like Christmas and Easter that have their origins centuries before the birth of Messiah.
Holy days versus holidays. What will a true disciple of Messiah do? Does it really matter what religious days we celebrate? Why not look into it and prove it for yourself? Maybe you'll be shocked by what the Bible actually teaches. One of the lessons learned by keeping Jehovah's holy days and feasts is the desire to choose His ways over our own. Taking up His observances and doing them is a clear indication of our heart's desire to follow Him in obedience. We follow Him by what we do, far more than what we say. We can talk the most convincing talk, but unless our words translate into active obedience, it is all just empty rhetoric. The Apostle Paul calls words without action sounding brass and tinkling cymbals. The actual keeping of Yahweh's festivals is the test of our sincerity. And I might add here that holidays, the word, comes from the root holy days. So if you are keeping holidays, you are actually keeping holy days of what God? Leviticus 19:34 says, Therefore you shall observe all my statutes and my judgments, and do them. I am Yahweh.
Well, Joshua says, As for me and my house, we will serve Jehovah. And that's the way I feel too, and most everybody here today on this conference call, and I hope you feel that way too. Jehovah's feasts are forever and for all. In Leviticus, Jehovah commanded Moses, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, Concerning the feasts of Jehovah, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. He says they are His feasts, Leviticus 23:2. They're His holy days, and like Brother Pete says, which God are you serving with your holy days? Well, Jehovah leaves no doubt that these observances belong to Him, not just to Jews or to any particular group of people. It doesn't matter whether you are an Israelite or a stranger. You are required to observe these days set apart by Jehovah himself.
Why do we see Yahweh's own Son and his people still observing the feasts in the New Testament? For one reason, and no fewer than 4 times in Leviticus 23, Yahweh declares the feasts a statute forever. Even in the coming kingdom, we find that people everywhere will be obedient. Quote, "And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all that flesh come to worship before me," says Yahweh. That's Isaiah 26:23. And what if they refuse, as many do today? Quote, "And it shall come to pass that every one that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go down from year to year to worship the King Yahweh of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whosoever will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King Yahweh of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain." That is Zechariah 14:16-18. Yeshua himself promised to keep the Passover in the future kingdom with his disciples, Matthew 26:29, Mark 14:25, and Luke 22:14-30, all record this. Everyone, including Yeshua, will be keeping the feast when the kingdom comes to the earth. So why should we not be keeping them now?
So to access more information about the feast calendar that is in the Bible, we invite you to go to our website, lunarsabbathday.com. It's a great source of information about the calendar in the heavens and the holy days of Jehovah. And I just want to thank everyone for being here today, and those that are here in our fellowship group. So we'll be back next week, Yah willing.